Thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of Sideline Stories. I'm Naomi Grey, and today I'm joined with Master Tesfatsion. Thank you so much for joining me today. How's it going?
Going well. Appreciate you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, usually with Sideline Stories, we are giving you guys an inside look and behind the scenes look at athletes. But over the next few weeks, I'm going to be featuring reporters, producers, writers, the people who bring you those stories. And you are somebody who does it all, a jack of all trades. And you've created quite the lucrative career for yourself already. And if you guys do not know, he is the face of one of the, I say, most popular, entertaining, in my opinion, digital series Untold Stories, which features prominent athletes, mainly NFL and most recently NBA players. So I want to know, who was Master 10 years ago?
Man, what was that? 1920? I was a broke kid in college trying to find my way. But I pulled out six figures in loans, going to Arizona State, pursuing a career that I had no idea if I had any shot of doing. But I gave it a chance.
Now, did you always picture yourself as a sports reporter or a writer?
It didn't happen till like senior high school was kind of when it really started sinking. So let me backtrack real quick. In high school, I was part of this this media tech class, right? Mess around with cameras. A lot of times I was like a producer, director in the background. And every now and then do some things on camera, though I wasn't really the biggest fan, but it was an easy A, and hey, they can see me on camera. So I was like, all right, cool, let me go ahead and give this a shot. And so it gave me a great understanding of like both the ins and outs of production, from behind the camera and also in front of the camera. But I never thought it could, the idea of being creative in this kind of space was never presented to me as a possible career option, until my teacher sat me down my senior high school, was like, yo, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't know. Either, become a comedian, because Dave Chappelle just walked away from like $50 million. And I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna make $50 million, but if I'm making 80K, that's twice as much money as my parents are making. So I mean, I could 80K, 100K, hitting up all these little small southern towns, I could make that work and I'll be really happy. Or join the military. Because down in Texas, they do a lot of recruiting, especially for people of diverse backgrounds, the enticement of paying for your college tuition. So he was like, man, you talk about sports all the time, why don't you become a sports writer? And it just never had hit me that was even an option for me. So I did a lot more research on it, and decided to hit the ground running on this thing. And it was a long path, you know what I'm saying? Some people like take the freeway, some people like take the scenic route. I'd say I definitely took the scenic route to get to this position I'm in, but hey, it's a little longer, but the views are much better and the experience is, to me at least, it's been a lot more enjoyable.
Right, and you talk about that long path, and you made stops in multiple places. You're from Texas, you went to school in Arizona, you've worked in Seattle, you've worked in Washington, D.C., and Minnesota.
Oh, yeah.
So look, like, you don't even remember some of these things. It's a long journey. So just how did you navigate making that many stops? And you're still, a fairly young guy.
I'm 29 still. So yeah, it's been a lot of changes. Like, I feel like every year, 18 months, it was a new place that I was moving to. So it was hard because, everyone naturally wants to find comfort, and it's hard to find comfort when you're always moving. So the difficult part about this journey and this job, which they don't tell us when we're getting into it, is you got to embrace being uncomfortable, because either in the living situation that you're in, the city that you're in, the people that you're around, the newsroom that you're in, hell, even asking the questions, like, you're constantly challenging yourself in these uncomfortable positions to really rise above the fear that you may have from not feeling the stability that you're looking for. And that constant has, been frustrating, has been draining, but in turn, it also has been very fulfilling, and has led to a lot of growth, both personally and professionally.
Absolutely. And you speak about being uncomfortable and you speak about the challenges. Was there any low point in your career where you felt like, I might not be able to bounce back from this?
Man, a few. A few. Obviously, when you talk about the absence of diversity that exists within newsrooms, it's always a challenge to try and be yourself in these spaces, and knowing that your true self is oftentimes not wanted or not accepted or embraced. Always had me question whether this was the place for me. Certain times in which I would challenge that would make it difficult, and understand that, I would probably lose some friends or allies or colleagues in, certain respect, but, understand I'm staying on a moral principle or identity that I believe in a whole lot more than all the other entities. Those were always probably the most difficult challenges to be a part of. Some stories I wrote that a lot of people were critical of, and, as we talk about, like, the backlash that can kind of come with social media, you never know if a certain story or certain, perspective that you're trying to share or get a better understanding for, people are going to be critical of it, but in terms of how overwhelming it can be sometimes, will it be the one that kind of damages your character or your reputation, that ultimately kind of has you ostracized from the industry? I've had a couple of those moments, in DC, in New York, and in Minnesota. So it's, but I'm thankful that I was able to navigate through all that. I always call it, when those moments happen, I always describe them as turbulence. When you're on a plane and you're kind of like, it's starting to get a little bumpy, and sometimes your heart's dropping because the plane's dropping at a rate that you weren't anticipating. And how you navigate all of that in those different moments, while still being able to try and find a place to get kind of smooth sailing again.
So you speak about diversity and writing stories that people won't be comfortable with. What are those stories? For example, give me an example what those stories
they won't be comfortable with?
Yeah. They aren't comfortable with.
Blackness. Naturally people aren't going to be comfortable with the true Black identity, especially in sports, when oftentimes they just want people to score 30 points or help out their fantasy football team or serve a space in a role that they find the most comfortable in. But when I see these athletes, I see people who are a greater representation of a group of people, a community, a race, a culture, an identity, a family, that kind of is the beauty of sports, where you get to see all these different perspectives, socioeconomic backgrounds, races, religions, sub-regional cultures, all kind of come together for a common goal, which is, to win a championship, obviously, but how are they going about it? How do they do it? To me, it's always kind of been something that's been very appealing and intriguing to try and figure out. And especially within Black identity, as someone from the South, from Texas, as a Black man, it's very clear, you really don't get the platform or opportunity to really, be recognized for your talents unless you're rapping or playing sports. And so understanding that, allowing people to see the true identity, the all-encompassing identity of these athletes, for various reasons, has been a great deal of pride for me. Blackness has the duality, it has the range, just like, we're not all monoliths. We do have the dualities, we do have the capabilities of being so much more than this, respectability politics people that we oftentimes have been presented as being. So I like to break out of that respectability politics boxes, obviously, but I also like to showcase and highlight other people who are doing the same.
Yeah, and now how you can imagine is like, some people, like Black people in this industry, might feel like we have a big burden to continue to bring these stories, and some people may not even want to shy away from them just to not be criticized. But why do you feel it's important for people that look like me and you to continue to bring these stories to the forefront? Yes, it is for diversity, for people to know, but why is it important for us to do it?
We got to validate it, because oftentimes these people go living their lives in the way that they do, being super successful, and that validation doesn't exist. And I think it's important twofolds to validate the fact of, people being able to do it in their threefolds, actually. People being able to, validating the person itself and the existence of this person and significance of this person. The second part is embracing the beauties of our imperfection, because oftentimes I don't think, as Black people especially, there's a lot of pressure on us to be perfect, which is obviously impossible. From an idealistic standpoint, it makes sense because we have a very minimal margin of error in terms of what we do or how we navigate, because one small step can get you shot and killed. So it's always in the back of our mind in terms of this idea of perfectionism and Black exceptionalism. But I like to take another side of this and just find the beauty in the imperfections, where, despite all the systemic issues that we've gone through that have impacted us in many ways, there are so many people who are still able to have a great deal of resilience in the midst of all that, and a great deal of fortitude in the midst of all that, to be incredibly talented and gifted in what they're doing in a system that wasn't created for them. And the third part, obviously, is to display, Blackness to 12-year-old me, 12-year-old you, that is looking for that source of inspiration and hope. That I think now there's a lot more range that exists within that, where, maybe for us growing up, it was, a lot more structured in terms of the linear basis of, checking off the box, or you being the token Black man or the token Black woman, you know what I'm saying? I mean, now we've got, transgender Black people in these positions, you know what I'm saying? Just in gender alone, you're seeing the representation and disruption and change that exists on that. And not to mention within those different genders, these different personalities and identities that exist within those, that I think truly is beautiful, and trying to be a part of that allows these different perspectives to be highlighted and shared and at least to the best of your ability, articulated to its truest form and extent. I don't need much else to wake up in the morning to be excited about or find a great deal of ambition and purpose in, because there's so many others that I know that were extremely talented, that unfortunately for one reason or another didn't have the opportunity or the privilege or the access or the resources to really display to the world the talent that they have. And so me being in that position to do so, and in a very humble way, being able to do that for others, it's a beautiful thing.
Right, and you speak about doing a lot of things for others, so you're clearly a selfless journalist and you inspire people, but I want to know what inspires you other than your community?
That's a good question. Definitely my fam. I mean, my fam came to this country like a couple $100 to their name, leaving a Civil War torn country. Their journey is incredibly inspiring for me. And you talk about a selfless act, and being completely uncomfortable, leaving the country and your family and your place of comfort, to try and want better for children that you haven't even conceived yet, and wanting a better opportunity for the next generation of people that you want to create. It's crazy to even think about that someone would want to take that kind of sacrifice for myself, my siblings, and put us in these kind of positions. So you're always kind of, as an immigrant in that kind of way, you're always living with this perspective and understand that you don't want their sacrifice to die in vain. So that always, that gets me out of bed every morning at 5 a.m., 5:30, because there's a great deal of purpose that exists within that. And beyond that, obviously the influences and inspirations which I had, obviously growing up in Texas, enjoying the culture here in Texas, which I'm always going to represent the South. I don't know, I feel like, a great deal of me is a representation of a lot of marginalized people that you never really expected to be in these positions. I never grew up to be famous, so that wasn't really a goal or idea of mine. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I could get out of poverty, I think that was a great, obviously source of inspiration for myself along this journey. But now, even with that, you look at a bigger picture than even, escaping yourself out of poverty is being able to validate and reflect a great deal of people that oftentimes don't get that recognition, don't get that validation. That's I know it's supposed to be about me, but it ultimately ends up coming back to that, because it's you just realize the shit is just bigger than you, and when that's the case, it's hard to forget that,
Yeah. And please correct me if I'm wrong. It's Eritrean.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about. As many can imagine, it's extremely rare to see Eritreans in this industry. So what were your parents' views when they pretty much seen that this is what you wanted to do further?
Oh yeah, they wasn't with it. they wasn't with it. They'll tell you different now, you know what I'm saying, because it worked. But at the time, my dad really wanted me to be like an entrepreneur. I think my mom wanted me to be like a doctor, a lawyer, very traditional kind of immigrant, like, goals. But I wasn't really with all that, because that wasn't me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I could do it. Don't get me wrong. Like, I feel like I would have been more than capable of accomplishing, and that's no disrespect to those that are in those fields, because I know they're very difficult to challenge. It's just, I have a great deal of self-belief in myself that if I apply myself to do something, I'm capable of doing it. And so that's just a perspective mentality I have. It's just, I don't know if I would have been happy doing it. That was always a huge disconnect. And when I told them I was doing this stuff, and whether they liked it or not, it was a couple of difficult conversations that happened, but you know, I went ahead and did it, and you know, I'm very grateful and thankful that, you know, I stood tall in those conversations, in those situations to do it, because it, you know, trying to pursue their ideas or concepts of what they feel like my purpose should be. You know, again, as much as, you know, probably would have, for me, I believe it could have worked out. I understand I'm living my life for me, you know what I'm saying, and for my own fulfillment and my own purpose. And, you know, being selfish in those kind of situations, I think, are necessary, because, you know, you don't want to be in those positions where you're working 20-hour shifts at a job that you don't like, wondering why you're doing this, and then having a level of spite and resentment towards your parents because, you know, you're feeling like they're the ones that kind of really forced you to in this position. I didn't want to be in that position with them. I wanted to make sure I chose something that if I failed doing it, that I was comfortable with doing that task or that career, because ultimately it was something that I feel like was my deepest desire.
Right. And so now you weathered all the storms, you got your parents to buy in, and now you're working for one of the biggest sports media outlets of our time right now with Bleacher Report. When you stepped in for your first day of work, did you have any idea what you were getting yourself into?
Kind of. Not to the extent that what it is now. But I will say my first day when I stepped in, I don't think I've shared the story before. I ended up coming in rocking a LaMelo Ball Lithuania jersey that I bought off Amazon. I delivered it straight there. When I did it, I was just kind of like, I don't know what you guys are about. Like, I clearly see what content-wise you guys are about, but like, here, this is what I'm about. You know what I'm saying? And man, it's been cool because there's been so many talented people that I've met through Bleacher Report. A lot of young, talented, especially young, talented Black people at Bleacher Report that, you know, still with us or came and left. That I'm very thankful for crossing paths with, because I've just learned a whole different perspective in terms of what digital sports media is, working at this company, where, you know, coming from like linear perspectives, you know, it's, you know, I'm sure you understand, working at a television station, you know, it's the 24-hour programming cycle of TV, or what are we going to fill for the newspaper? And that ends up still being a priority, despite the fact that, you know, your news consumptions, and you know the news consumptions of people of your age group, of your friends, and you're realizing it's just a lot of this is outdated. Bleacher Report was very much a crash course in understanding like the advanced, you know, intricacies and understandings of digital media, what's successful, what's measured as successful, you know, how to get certain concepts and stuff like that off the ground, how to do things with a very low budget. And obviously, you know, they got a great reach and a great platform and an audience that I feel like speaks to me that I've never had before. So that's the part I'm extremely thankful for, because, you know, being a Black creative, it's hard to find an audience that you know you can talk to in that kind of level that, you know, will reciprocate and understand where you're coming from. So that to me has been the biggest appreciation I've had working here.
Right. And your baby, one of your many babies, I'm sure, Untold Stories, is something that you worked on from the ground up, and your name is literally your name on it, a creation that you know, put together. How did you develop that concept, and how long did it take to bring it to life and what we see now?
Yeah, it was something I'd been working on, trying to figure out a show for me, and I wanted to do something in the pool hall because I felt like there's just a lot of significance and ties to a pool hall. For me personally, growing up at the rec center, you know, you spend all day hooping, and then when you get tired of hooping, you go to the game room and people playing at the bumper pool, playing pool. And I always enjoyed those experiences and the conversations that we would have with that. You know, fast forward now into my career, and I'm seeing a lot of athletes having pool tables at their big ass cribs. And, you know, we would do something similar. You know, you drink a little brown, you know what I'm saying? You go to the game room and you playing pool, you catching up with them, and it's a great experience, a great atmosphere that I always wanted to replicate on set, because I feel like it could be a great intimate setting for a great conversation that the athlete can feel comfortable in, but then also I can feel comfortable in. Because, you know, as I'm sure you know, like those sit down one-on-one conversations and stuff like that you try to do, it's one of those things that's kind of antiquated in terms of how the setup in the situation is, that it doesn't necessarily reflect the best way to have a conversation. So had been trying to get this concept off the ground. It took a minute, you know, thankfully was given the opportunity. Like Untold Stories kind of already started in like a beta situation, a pilot situation, was presented the opportunity to host the show, but make it my own. So I applied the concept in which I had for the pool hall onto the show, because I feel like it would be a great marriage. And thankfully, you know, I had two great producers in Nicole Williams and Lakia Holmes, that, you know, two Black women that were able to, you know, we were able to come together and create a really great execution for the vision, and, you know, hit the ground running. And it was, you know, it was a lot of hard work, you know what I'm saying? Season 1, trying to get that off the ground. Season 2, you know what I'm saying? It you know, as the numbers came in, you know what I'm saying? The growth continued with that, and being in the position we're in now is crazy, because it's, you know, I'm really happy and really pleased with kind of where the show is. I think it's probably the most fun I've ever had by far in my career. And it's just a great feeling to feel a great deal of purpose and fulfillment in this journey, because, you know, there's days in which, you know, I spent many nights sleeping in edit bays in the college, you know, journalism building. You know what I'm saying? I spent many nights, you know, in the basement of the Star Tribune building, editing videos or recording videos, you know, late 3 a.m. calls, trying to report news and breaking news and stuff. Like, there's a lot of grind, a lot of effort that's gone into, you know, sharpening my skill sets and being in the position that I'm in right now. That it's just great to being able to bring all those experiences and all that work and that dedication together into something that I feel like truly represents me and truly can allow the athlete to feel like it represents them as well.
Exactly. And we're talking prominent athletes. We're not talking about no washed up 70 years ago. No offense to them, but like, you got T.O., Victor Cruz, Nate Robinson recently, 25 episodes. Did you have, or do you have a favorite out of the load that you produced?
T.O. one was great. I think my new favorite has to be Jason Terry. Just being from Dallas, being able to rep Dallas now on the set has been great, because it's one of those things I always said, if I was going to be able to get put on, like, I would make sure I put on for my city too. And so, but being able to put on for my city with the set, while also having someone from the 2011 Mavs team that's my favorite team ever, man, that was a great time. And that episode did, I think it's done like over 5.2 million views now. So, which I think by far, in terms of numbers wise, in a short amount of span, I think that was in 2 weeks. It just kind of shows the growth and trajectory that we're having on right now. And it's just dope to see that people were receptive in that kind of way of us being able to have fun, us being able to kick it, play pool. Jason Terry was dope, being able to share dope experiences from the title team, but also, you know, LeBron dunking on him and what that experience was like. You know, I think he really understood the platform, and knowing that, hey, if I'm open and honest in this situation, people are gonna be a lot more receptive, you know, because I feel like athlete vulnerability right now, you know, I think there's sports fans are a lot more receptive and wanting to hear these different stories and their different perspectives in this kind of way now more than ever before. And I think Jason Terry understood kind of the platform and the opportunity to do so in this setting, in this environment, and, you know, was able to share, you know, many different moments and perspectives on him. And I think, you know, for him, a lot of people walked away really enjoying and appreciating Jason Terry to a greater extent. You know, there's even Heat fans who can't stand the dude who was like, damn, I like him now, you know, and that for me is cool, because it's you know, I'm sharing with them a different perspective, a different side of the athlete. So I gotta say Jason Terry, but T.O. was dope. Percy Harvin was dope. Ed Reed was dope. Ricky Williams was really, really cool. It's been cool. Like, I'm as much as I'm geeked about the ones that we already had, I'm even more psyched for the ones we got coming up. You know, we're about to finally get some women in the pool hall. So, you know what I'm saying? You know, a couple episodes of women. Gonna try and get some baseball players involved too before we get back to football. So just slowly branching it out and trying to get a large net of people to come in so we can keep this thing rolling.
Now let's think. There's a 10-year-old Black boy in Texas, doesn't come from the best background, doesn't really have that much money, but he says, Master, I want to be like you when I grow up. What would your advice, as plain as day, as truthful as possible, be to that little boy?
Shit, I hope you're better than me. You know, like, I don't really like to put myself on a pedestal in that kind of way, where, I'm thankful for the journeys and the tasks in which I took, but, you do these things so the people that come after you can be better than you. I'm not one of those people that, wants my name carved in stone and always wants to diminish those that come after me so I can prop myself up in my limelight and my name and recognition. Nah. You do these things to bridge the gap, and then ultimately at some point you pass the baton so they can take it and run with it, and they're gonna do it a whole lot faster, better, stronger, whatever the case may be, than you did. I would say be better than me. I would say maintain your curiosity. Curiosity is really what got me here to this position. Be courageous, operated with a great deal of fortitude. Someone that I really admire and appreciate. She always shares with me, there's two types of people who operate out of fear and people who operate out of love, you know? And so everything that you're doing, make sure you're operating out of love, because if you're operating out of fear, you're not gonna get where you need to get at. And I think that right there in that mindset is the biggest difference maker. So yeah, that would be the biggest advice, guy, girl, what I'm saying, respectful of all genders. Like that's ultimately what I would share. Just, it's, I'm flattered by the idea of someone wanting to be me, or, seeing me and inspired to do that. But my perspective and mentality is always gonna be better than me. It's just, you could look at me as someone to set the bar and the standard, but every bar and standard gets replaced. And there's always a new bar and a new standard. So go set that.
Absolutely. And to bring this whole interview full circle, I asked you, where were you 10 years ago? Where will you be, or where do you see yourself being 10 years from now?
Oh, shit. That'd be what? Damn, 39? Shit, I mean.
But you're 40.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully wife and kids, you know what I'm saying? Like, hopefully, I got a production company I'm getting off the ground. So, I'd love to find a great deal of stability. And I love what I do. I have a great deal of passion what I do, but I've always wanted a family. So it's something that I'm hoping to create all this effort and energy that I'm putting in right now to give me time 10 years down the road now where I can enjoy these different experiences with my family, and really live life in a new different perspective, where who knows what creative thoughts or concepts can kind of come out of that evolution of that growth that exists. But family for sure is the biggest thing. In terms of like what I'm doing career-wise, I don't know, it's just all this stuff is just kind of always, I don't want to say it's been random, it's just I've just been going with the flow, you know what I'm saying? And just making sure I'm just focusing on the work that I'm doing, and everything else is kind of presenting itself as it goes, as I've just been very intentional with that. So I hope to continue to maintain that same level of intentionality. But families, that's really the focus. Like that's definitely gonna happen in the next 10 years. So that's, hopefully I'll be a soccer dad or some shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Whatever sport or whatever instrument or whatever they want to do. If they want to be in drama, they want to be in chess club. Like, I don't care. I'll be there. You know what I'm saying? Dressed how I ever need to be, support and be the biggest support I could possibly be.
I think that's so. Cheers to you being a soccer dad. I hope that happens for you. But before we go, I want you to tell people how they could find you, how they could find your work, and what series you're working on, because you do stuff outside of Untold Stories. So I want you to just do a little plug right now for yourself. For
sure. Follow me on Twitter, Master TES. Follow me on Instagram, Master_Tesfatsion. Untold Stories, check that out. Episode 25 of Nate Robinson is out now. You can check it out on YouTube, my IGTV, Twitter, pretty much every social platform possible. In terms of stuff I got going on, I can't really say too much right now. I'm waiting for the paperwork to finish up, but definitely got some things in works in the projects, some projects in the works on the Hollywood side with scripted shows, trying into the documentary space and game as well. So big thing right now is ownership, the IP, and being able to have that residual income is at the forefront of what I'm trying to do right now. So stay tuned on that. There's more to come on that, but I can't say too much right now.
All right, well, don't forget the little people when it all sets up, right?
I got you, Naomi.
But thank you everyone for tuning in. I'll see you guys next week. And Master, thanks so much.
You already know. Appreciate you.